Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Bizzy. I hope you enjoyed today's story. And if you do, please subscribe. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Bizzy. So glad you're back. And we are here at episode 505 with our guest, Risa August. Hi, Risa. How are you?
I'm doing well, Bizzy. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here because you have been through so much, my friend, haven't you?
I guess I have. I think there's still a part of me that tries to downplay it a little bit. But yes, I can say I've been through a lot.
You've had a journey. And
Yeah.
before I go on, you guys, so Risa August is an inspirational speaker. She is an author of The Road Unpaved. She's a Gestalt practitioner, a creativity coordinator. I practice that, you guys, I promise. And an igniter of dreams. So tell us your story. What happened? What made you become an author? What happened in your journey? I know you had a brain tumor and you had a lot of diagnoses that were not correct.
Mhm.
And you battled this for a long time. So will you tell us from the beginning what happened?
Sure. I'd say it was around 2011 when I was living my life. So I thought it was my best life at that time. It was the way my life was the way it was supposed to be, perfectly planned out. I was an Ironman athlete, married to a very nice man, beautiful home. And around 2011, I started noticing changes in my body. And I went to see a doctor, and blood work was fine. So I was told I was okay. But the changes continued. And I'm definitely one to not go to doctors regularly. I really have a holistic view on medicine and health. And so if I can avoid doctors and ibuprofen, I will at all costs. But the changes were undeniable. And so I kept going back and I kept trying different doctors. And the couple things I heard most often were, your blood work's fine. We're not worried. Or you're an athlete, you're healthy. We're not worried. Or I'm not worried. And so yeah, for about 7 years, I heard that. And the changes continued. Some of those changes were like extreme weight gain, um, changes in hair growth on my body, shoes not fitting, jewelry not fitting. Mm. And those are just a few things. And so I remember about 7 years later in 2018, I started having severe headaches where I was barely sleeping, maybe 2 hours a night. Again, it was undeniable. I would go to my doctor. She's like, I'm not worried. You're overtraining. You're not drinking enough water. The list went on. Your blood work's fine. And I remember asking for an MRI, and told me no. Said she's not worried. There's nothing to worry about. And I said, no, I'd rather get the MRI and be wrong and have that peace of mind. And she said no again. And she said, and I'll never forget this. She said, well, and besides, they're expensive. And I remember thinking, wait a minute. I didn't know you were my financial advisor on top of my primary care physician. And so I think it felt like for the first time I found my voice, and I feel some emotions coming up because old Rissa would have just said, okay, well, then it must be me. It must be in my head, or I'm making it up, or these symptoms are easy to explain. I'm eating too much, or my Romanian heritage is making me more hairier. I don't know. But I was about to just kind of resign myself to her telling me no. And I have to say it was some kind of divine intervention that day, because I just said, order me the MRI with just this sternness I never had before. And she turned around to her computer, shaking her head, typing something, and said, okay. And so I had the MRI, and 1 week later, I had an email from her with one sentence saying, you have an enlarged pituitary, go see an endocrinologist. And
Uh,
that was when my life changed forever.
oh, I'm like sitting here flabbergasted, and that doesn't happen to me very much. So most of my listeners know this, but that is insane. And the fact that you kept going, and the doctor, she's like, no, sorry, you're not. You're like, but we all know. I remember when my children were young, and I said, my child has an ear infection. They're like, you have no idea. I said, yes, I do. I'm the mom. I know what's wrong with my child. And I went in, and they're like, you're right. He has an ear infection. I said, I told you. And we sit here and we wonder why we have this person right now that just did what he did in New York City a couple weeks ago. It's terrible that people think that they need to go to that extreme, but our doctors need to start paying attention to what we are saying about our bodies, and we are not machines or robots.
Mhm. Yeah.
I am so, so sorry, but I'm so glad you had the intuition to say, and divine intervention, as you said, God always is there, I believe, and to say, you know what, I'm not taking no for an answer. You're going to write this. And
Mhm.
I love what you said. You're not my financial advisor. I think that's amazing. I think that's amazing. So what happened next?
Yeah.
So you go see this endocrinologist, which I'm sure was not easy to find. And they're hardest people to get appointments with, I think.
Yes, and what I've learned through this journey is that most endocrinologists specialize in thyroid,
Hmm.
but so it was hard to find a pituitary specialist, and the pituitary actually controls the thyroid and all the other glands in our body. This is all stuff I learned. I didn't know what an endocrinologist was at that point. So I'm like, what does this mean? Do I have cancer? Do I have, like, what does all this mean? I had no explanation, um, no one to talk to about it. But I finally got in to see the endocrinologist, and she was the opposite. She was this very coactive doctor that worked with me as a partner in this diagnosis, not as someone who knows more or dismisses me. And so it was a very different experience. And so I went in there kind of on the defense, like, okay, am I going to be dismissed again? Like, are they going to just, ignore what I'm saying? But she was amazing, and she got right to the point. And I'm staring at this screen with my skull, and you could see the two eyeballs, and there's this big gray blob right between the eyeballs at the base of my brain. And she's like, this has to come out. And I had no idea. I still had no idea what that meant, why I was there. And she continued on, and she's like, and furthermore, I'm 99% sure I know what you have. And I'm like, well, yeah, a tumor. Like, and she says, no, there's also a disease, a rare disease connected to it. And that explains your symptoms that you've been having for years. And I just bawled, not because of this tumor and that I had this now impending brain surgery, but because I felt validated.
Mm.
And that was the most important thing in that moment for me, was the validation of, like, I knew it. I'm not crazy. I'm not eating too many potato chips. I'm not a hypochondriac. And so I'll never ever forget that moment, and I still have tears around it because I just felt heard.
It is so hard because so many of us, we know intuitively, as we just mentioned, we know what's going on and we know we're not crazy. And we go to our spouse or our partner and we say, this is going on, this is going on. And at some point they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. You're like the little boy that cried wolf, right? But now you're like validated. What is your husband thinking now that you've been validated? Where does he fit into all of this?
Well, I think his first concern was, well, oh, is this cancer? What is this tumor? Um, I quickly learned that it's non-cancerous. It's not benign. It's doing a lot of damage to my body, but it's not cancerous. Um, I think he didn't really know how to respond to it. So I didn't necessarily have the support, the emotional support around it that I would have wanted. And again, that's kind of hindsight. I started off as this person like not needing anybody. I'm strong and I can do this on my own, and watch, everyone watch. I'm going to bounce back. No problem. You don't got to worry about me. I can still function, and it was, I don't know if that was more for me or for them, to just try to uphold the everything's normal, everything's okay, everything's going to be fine. And so I think he probably believed that as well.
We always like to give the persona that I got it. I got this. I got
Yeah.
this. I can do anything. I'm
Mhm.
Wonder Woman. Look at me. I can bring home the bacon, dun, 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 fry it up in a pan. But we do get to this place of vulnerability where we're like, oh my gosh, I kind of do need help. I don't really have this. And that
Mhm.
takes a lot of courage, doesn't it?
It sure does. Yes. Yes. And I had a very profound moment in ICU. I ended up being in ICU for 10 days, which is, it's not typical after the type of surgery I had, but I had some complications, and I was I had so many tubes and wires, and I was hooked up to so many different things. And I just remember thinking, this physical therapist came around after about day 5, and she said, well, what do you think, we get up and get you out for a walk? And I'm like, you don't know who you're talking to. I'm an Ironman athlete, and I don't need this walker, and I don't need your help. And it turns out I did. And
Mm.
I made it around the ICU floor that day, which was a big deal. I was like strolling along with my little walker, and um, all the nurses were cheering for me. And again, I feel a little emotional over that, but it it was really a moment of, oh my gosh, it's okay to ask for help, and I actually like it. Like, I actually appreciate it. It feels good to accept it, because I was always the one doing it for everyone else, helping everyone else, being there for everyone else, supporting everyone else. And I finally had no choice. I had to rely on other people.
It's so humbling.
Truly.
Truly humbling.
Mhm.
And tell me this, how was your faith during all this? Do you have a faith? Describe to us what your faith is. Do you believe in God? Do you believe where is your faith in everything? And especially going through something so big. I mean, this is humongous what you went through. Like they cut
Mhm.
open your brain, your head.
Yes. So I actually didn't spend much time with spirituality or God. I grew up Catholic, but um
Me too.
okay. And so I went on to, I didn't necessarily align with Catholicism, and I went on to kind of learn about different faiths and religions, and kind of relearn what Christianity was, and who Jesus was as a man. And I can't say I landed on any one religion, but I did. This experience made me more spiritual. I do speak to God. I do feel there's a higher source or higher power. And but it it took some letting go of old beliefs. I had a lot of people praying for me and sending me their angels and things, and I had some ego around that. And this, like I said, like when you're walking around in a hospital gown and your butt flapping in the wind and you're in a walker when 18 months earlier you were crossing the finish line of an Ironman, it's humbling. And nothing's in your power or control, and so you have to let it go. You have to hand it over. And so now I pray all the time. I have angels. I have, you know, people on the other side supporting me. And so it did strengthen my spirituality a whole lot. Yes,
And
absolutely.
how old were you when this happened?
I gosh, I believe this was in my early 40s. How old was I in 2018? I had my surgery in 2019. I can't remember how old I was in 2019. um
How old are you now?
So that was 6 years ago. So 44.
Wow.
44.
So
Yeah.
that's young. That's young.
Yeah, considering I still feel like a spring chicken, mentally a spring chicken, and, I have a very youthful spirit, and I was always very energetic. But waking up after surgery, my body no longer matched that. And I soon learned my body would never be the same as it was. And it wouldn't function the same, not just physically, but like cognitively and brain wise.
How was your recovery? And was your husband still, was he there helping you along, or where did he go?
Um, he, my husband at the time, now my ex husband, he's really good at, we're actually still very close. So, but he was very good at taking care of what needed to be done around the house, household things, everything, domestically. And I was in a place of needing emotional support. And that's something I can honestly say he was never able to give me. Um, not on purpose, not because he didn't want to. He wasn't capable of it. And so I can see that now. I didn't understand it back then, how we're like, why won't you just do what I want you to do or need you to do? But so I had to tap into my community and friends and find that emotional support elsewhere. And so after following surgery, I actually had a girlfriend come. She offered to take care of me for 2 weeks. And, she just had that nurturing, loving side to her. I'm not close with my family, blood family either. Um, so I didn't have anyone from my family that would have felt healing to be around. So my girlfriend came for a couple weeks and just took care of whatever I needed. And not to be gross, but like, I had so much blood that had to constantly be cleaned up because they went in through my nose for the surgery. And so for weeks, my friend would painstakingly every day clean the dried caked blood from my nose. And I hope that's not too gross to say on your show.
Oh no, because we're totally real here. And that makes total sense. And everything you just said, like from one is letting go. Letting go is so hard for us. I don't know if this generation has it as much as, our generation. I think we're around the same exact age. I'm 56. And so, yeah, this is kind of same general age group.
Mhm.
And we were never taught to, like, for one, ask for help, for two, realize, for me at least, as I've gotten older, I realized, like, my husband's got one job and my girlfriends have another job, right? My husband is not going to ever be like we are. We're women, we're caring, we just have this ability. I mean, there's probably some men that are like this, but I'm going to use generalities here, guys.
Mhm.
But I think that it's like men are the hunters and the gatherers. So, like, give me a job and I'll go do it. You need me to go to
Yes.
the grocery store? Check. You need me to make a fire? Check. You need me to go to They like to do that. But the nurturing part is hard, and I don't know if it is so much with men, of this younger generation, but I know of our age group, it was like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And it's so true.
Yes. It's so true. Yeah.
And having that friend is amazing, right?
Mhm. Yes.
She's a love wherever she is. I'm just giving her a shout out wherever you are.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thank
taking
you.
care of her. And so the recovery, how long did that take?
Um, there's a part of me that still feels like I'm going through it. I went on to learn they couldn't get the entire tumor and I had to have radiation treatment. And
How was
radiation
that?
treatment, even though I had it 6 years ago, it's still doing damage to my body. Um, and so I still feel like I'm constantly fighting that every day and I'm still battling my disease. So, but I have to say, it was about 10 months before I got out of these tattered gray sweatpants, got off the couch, and decided to live.
I love that. I love that. And you decided to get back on your bike,
Yes.
and you decided to ride your bike 1,845 miles.
Yes.
And why did you choose to do the Pacific Coast Bicycle Trail? Why was that your route? Why did you choose that route?
Well, at this point in my life, I remember it very clearly sitting on this. We had this big brown leather sofa in our living room. And again, I was looking down at these horribly worn and tattered gray sweatpants. And another day of TV and not getting some fresh air and not getting out of the house. And I just remember thinking, this is no way to live. I don't want to live this way. And so, as dramatic as this may sound, I felt like I needed something to live for. And I knew my body would never run again, physically. Um, and I pulled out my bucket list. And I said, now's the time to start living. Now's the time. All those things I've been putting off, saying I'm going to do someday. Now's the time to start doing it. What am I waiting for? And I had always wanted to ride my bike across the country from coast to coast. And I was looking at different routes and I didn't necessarily love any of them. I didn't want to really drive through or ride through, Nebraska or some of the, um, I don't want to say boring states. It's, all states have their hidden gems, but, none of them really appealed to me. And then I found the Pacific Coast bicycle route. And I knew I had lived in Washington and Oregon before. I loved those states, and I've always admired the coast and the landscape. And I said, that's the one. And that same day, I signed up for it. And I said, I don't know. I have 14 months to train. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it.
That
And
is.
that's when that started. That's when that journey began.
And were you by yourself, or were you with the group?
I signed up with it's called a semi-supported tour, and that's where about 10 of us load all our gear in a van, and then we get ourselves to the next point, and then our gear is there waiting for us, and we'd camp at campgrounds, and I remember thinking that'll be the easier way. I'll feel more confident. I have medications that are require special treatment or handling, and I'll feel confident and comfortable that way. Well, it has its own challenges. One, you're dealing with 10 different personalities. Two, you have to follow that van if you want your gear. So there's no rest days. Like, I can't take a day off if my body hurts or if it's raining too hard or too windy. I have to get on my bike to get to my gear the next day, or I have no way to carry my gear. So I have no way to get to the next point with all my gear if I don't follow that van. And so we were on a very tight schedule. And so there were some pros and cons to that journey. I went into it though thinking, I'm doing this on my own and nobody better try to help me, and this is my soul healing journey. And at the end, I bawled saying goodbye to all the people I connected with. I I mean, I just learned so much about getting out of my own way and my own beliefs, and my entire perspective had changed.
It's so interesting because I believe this so much that when you are going through something so hard, like you're battling whatever it is, if you're battling a disease, if you're battling addiction, if you're whatever you're battling, if you have something to look forward to in the future, it propels you to get up every day. And how did you get physically and mentally prepared to get on your bike? How did you do this?
Well, that was quite a process. Um, I couldn't get on my bike right away. I was still completely wiped out from the radiation treatment, and um, I began painting. Actually, I decided I had to get off the couch. That was the first thing I decided, and I had to stop focusing on what I couldn't do, all the things that I could no longer do, my body could no longer do, who I no longer was. And I started asking myself, well, what can I do? And I took the letters from the word can, CAN, and I turned it into a mantra: capable, able, now. What am I capable and able to do now in this moment? Well, I can get my butt off this couch. Great. The next step was, well, what can I do now? Well, I can get a pair of yoga pants on and burn these sweatpants. And I remember I was going through Gestalt training at that time, which was also extremely helpful in my healing journey. And so I decided I'm going to gift people who are going through the program with me, because we were getting ready to graduate. I'm going to gift them with something. And so I started painting. I took inspiration from the Native American talking sticks, and I started painting these beautiful pieces of art to give to my fellow practitioners to use in their um, groups and retreats. And they were just completely astounded and said, Rissa, you need to start selling these. And I said, no, 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 no. They were just like a mindfulness practice for me. They were a way for me to just not to get up and do something, but and not focus on, what I couldn't do anymore. And they said, no, you need to sell these. And then all of a sudden I'm selling those all around the world. And that was just a step in the process. And then eventually I finally made it to my mailbox. I walked to my mailbox and back. And then I got the dogs out for a walk. And then I got on my bike in the basement for 5 minutes. Then it turned into 10 minutes. Then it turned into my first 8-mile ride outside. And 8 miles for me felt, my critical part would show up and be like, 8 miles, what? You used to do 100, no problem. And I had to start shedding these old parts of self. I wasn't that person anymore, but I eventually did a 100-mile ride. And then my 1,800-mile journey came around, and I finished that too. And there were days I didn't know if I could, but I did it. But it started with me getting off that couch, asking myself, what can I do? What am I capable and able to do now?
What is Gestalt? What is it?
Yes, Gestalt is a word that it's a German word that's loosely defined as wholeness, and it's a very non-traditional and experiential approach to coaching, and and it's a way to explore, like go inward and explore the past experiences or traumas we've had and see how they might be holding us back today. And there's a very somatic element to it as well, believing that a lot of the traumas we've had in our past are trapped in the cells of our body, which isn't a new concept, but it's definitely incorporated into that modality.
How'd you even find out about it? How'd you even hear about it? Were you just on the couch? Was there an infomercial? Just kidding. But how did you decide to how did this pull you? What transpired there?
Right. Well, I actually I have a business background, and I was actually running the operations for a woman who took the modality of Gestalt and part combined it with horses, and she pioneered this equine Gestalt practice. And I was running the business I was on the backside of things. I actually had no interest in the work she was doing. I was never a horse girl or anything. But but then she brought an interesting point up to me. She said, she knew my history and my past. I've worked for her for a long time, and I've always been in these relationships where either the other person was controlling or I felt this need to control. And she said to me, well, the pituitary is the control center of the body, and that's where you got your tumor. And I was blown away by that idea, that thought.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's when my exploration began. I was still a skeptic. Like, it took a while, but I started being like, huh, what's this Gestalt all about? What have I been doing for her for all these years? Like, what is she doing? What is she really doing? And so that's when I began learning more and more about the the modality.
Well, I'm sure at first you were probably insulted. You're like, "What do you mean I caused this myself? Are you crazy, lady? Like, who would ever choose this to happen? Or like, this am I controlling? Are you telling me something?" And instead, you actually, which is huge because think about it. So many people get insulted, and instead they're like, "I'm done. Close the door. I'm going to somebody else." But
Mhm.
instead, it's stuck in your head, and you said, "I got to go and figure this out."
I was curious about it. And I think that's, as long as I'm curious, there was probably a part of me that was like, oh, yeah, yeah, okay. Because, I mean, old Rissa did have this idea that, like, I never understood why people didn't operate in the world the way I did. And so Gestalt helped me start learning about, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, not everyone sees the world and operates the same way you do. It just really opened my mind and my heart to an entirely different existence, really. And so, despite all this, I love who I'm becoming, and I say becoming because I'm going to be becoming for the rest of my life. And but I really love this version of me way better than who I was pre-diagnosis.
I love that. So, what happened with your family of origin? Did you guys ever mend fences?
Um, that's a complicated topic. I think part of me stepping into who I am is setting boundaries as well. Um, I used to be the person that would just allow people to cross boundaries, and I overgave, I over accommodated, and if I set boundaries or expressed what I wanted, then I was being selfish, and that's bad. Um, and so I'm finally in this point of, and I'm actually going through this right now of like, I've set a boundary, and, which means I'm right now, on hiatus from, from communicating with my family. But I need this for me. And I feel like a pressure has lifted, a weight has lifted. And I feel like for the first time in my life, I get to focus on me and be who I am without feeling judged or criticized. And so yeah, I'm still learning and in process with that.
Isn't it so funny that when we go through these times, at least for me as well, you sometimes have to separate from these people that your parents, your siblings, and all of that, even though they are so sad that you're not there, and we don't even think about, right? We don't even think that they're sad. We're like, it's about me. But at the same time, it's like they're sad. And when we make these big decisions, now being a mom that's had, people do similar things, it's like it hurts, right? It hurts the mom because you're like, oh my gosh, but you're like, but I want to take care of me. And it's such a fine line. And as you know, I talked about just this past Wednesday about the boundaries, because so many people, we set them, and the people around us don't really like them.
They don't like them, right?
No.
And I try to, because I am so compassionate, I remind myself of, but I am more than just a daughter. I'm an individual also navigating my life on this planet. And what do I need to do that? Like, what, you know, do I need, for me right now, I need some healing and to process and work through some things. And I also need to focus on my health and my goals. And are the people in my life an asset, or are they working against me, or are they working with me? And so I continue to ask myself those questions, about, all my relationships. And, um, but my MO used to be, okay, it must be me. I'm doing something wrong, or it's not okay what I'm doing. And so again, I think I'm like most of us. Like I'm learning too. I'm a human on this planet. I don't do things the best possible way all the time. But I'm learning. I'm learning, and what I do know I want is to continue to be a better person every day. That's in my heart. That's undeniable.
It's that self-love. And
Yeah,
I think it starts with that, right? You have to love ourselves, and then we can love everybody else.
right.
And if we don't start at the inside, we can't ever give it out.
So true. Yeah.
Isn't that true? So, but I love that you've done this, that you actually got off the couch. And what is your advice to somebody out there that has a debilitating diagnosis, or something happening that they just went through, and they're sitting there in their sweatpants that they want to burn, and they can't do it. They can't get off the couch. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say, one, you don't have to do an 1,800-mile bike ride. But find that thing that drives you or that you're passionate about or the thing you always wanted to do? And what are the steps it's going to take to get there? And then start with step one by asking yourself, what am I capable and able to do now in this moment? And then the next thing, and then the next thing. And then before you know it, you're in it and you're doing it. And it's amazing.
It's amazing. It is amazing. And tell me this. So you wrote this book.
Yes, another one of my bucket list items. I had been wanting to write a book for a long time, and I would start and stop. I envisioned like the people that keep crumpling up the paper and throwing it, and then it's all over the floor. And um, but then this was the story. There was just something in me that this was the story, and I don't know if I kept sharing my story and people were like, wow, that's really interesting. And I know initially I was like, well, who's going to want to hear this? Who's going to want to read this? People go through challenges all the time and they do amazing things every day. And like, who's going to want to hear my story? And I had to get away from that and reframe it to, but I want to tell my story. I want to tell my story. And the people who want to hear it will hear it. The people who are drawn to it will read it or connect with it.
And did you handwrite it or did you write it on your computer?
Oh gosh, well, I have journals and journals upon journals, and then I also have um, like recorded audio on my phone, and then I also have stuff I've started and stopped that in Word documents on my computer as well. And my first draft actually, um, my first laptop crashed, and I lost my entire first draft, which so I had to start completely over. But with that said, um, people always talk about the shitty first draft. And so I just say that was my shitty first draft, and it was thrown away for me, and I got to start again, and it ended up being better than the first draft anyway. So
This is what you've been through is amazing. And the fact that you've written it down and it being Christmas right now and people are out there. I know your Christmas isn't your favorite, is it?
it's not. I have to admit, I keep myself extremely busy to get through the holidays. Yes, I've had loved ones pass away around this time of year. Um, I I didn't grow up having these wonderful holiday celebrations or a loving, connected family. I'm now divorced from my husband of 18 years, and so yeah, it's a feeling I'm aware of. I don't go through the holidays like, oh, I hate it and bah humbug, but I'd say it's a sadness I'm aware of, and but I find ways to honor that, and yeah. So
How do you honor that? Because as you just listened to my podcast and I just did it, and I think that there's people that are out there that have gone through a lot like you. I mean, after breaking up a marriage of 18 years, that's a big deal. That
mhm,
is a huge deal.
mhm. Yeah.
And then your family, it has to feel isolating at some point.
I mean, it sure does. And those out there that do deal with chronic illness or life altering diagnosis, like that adds another layer of isolation. It's really, I present as very healthy and normal, and I hear that all the time. It was something I actually you said in your bio that resonated with me, is like people would see me and say, "You look great. You look so healthy." And they have no idea, like, oh, most days I'm in pain and my medication causes side effects and I feel foggy or scattered, and but I'm doing my best. but I decided that part of stepping into who I am is being and doing all the things I always wanted to do. And going for the holidays, I book as much fun stuff as I can. Like, I go see lights everywhere I can. And, for example, there's this awesome, it's called Bike Rail, where I live in Colorado. And you, they have these old, rail, I don't know what they're called, not rail cars, but they're the men who would do maintenance on the tracks, and
Oh,
they'd be on
yeah.
those cars, but they turned them into pedal, but like where you pedal and you
Yes.
pedal yourself along the train tracks
Yes.
and you pedal through lights, and it's festive, and all about the holidays, and it's just so lovely. And because I love to bike, I'm like, I'm doing that. And I go see exhibits and arts and the Nutcracker, and I try to embrace all the things that, perhaps I didn't have as a child, um, or that just feel really joy filled for me. And, so that's part of it. But I do that throughout my whole life, not just the holidays. You know, uh, for example, I started sparkling hair. Um,
Fairy hair.
Yes, it's fairy hair. And I do it simply because it brings people joy. Like, it makes men, women, children smile. They love it when they see it in my hair. They love it when it's in their hair. And so those are the things I'm filling my life with. And so yeah, and so it's finding the joy.
And where do you go to? Where in Colorado are you? If somebody's listening in Colorado and they're like, this sounds like fun, where are you?
I'm just outside of Denver. Yeah, so Golden, Colorado. Yep.
I know exactly. I was born in the Springs.
Okay.
Yes, I was born in the Springs. So, do you have a daily practice or mantra that keeps you grounded and keeps you? What do you do every day that gets you able to do and go find this joy and to say, I'm going to go find the Nutcracker in my town. I'm going to go to the symphony. I'm going to go find this bike. I'm going to go find the lights. What do you do each day that gets you to this place that propels you to the next day or the next
Oh my
hour?
gosh. Hands down. And this isn't anything new that I've invented. Every morning and every night, I list everything I'm grateful for. I talk out loud to my spirit guides and my angels, and I say, these are all the things I'm grateful for. These are all the things I feel so blessed to have. Even on those days where I'm crabby or cranky, or I feel like things aren't going my way, I say, yeah, but you know what? I'm grateful for this, and I'm grateful I have that. And some days, all I can muster is, well, at least I have a bed to sleep in. At least I'm able to stock my refrigerator with food, and it's, some days that's all I can muster. But even like, I just, yeah, gratitude, finding the gratitude, being grateful, and telling other people why I'm grateful for them. Connections, one of my top values. Like, I'm so deeply grateful to be on this podcast with you, having this conversation. It's truly a healing practice for me to get to share. And so gratitude, yeah, hands down.
I love that. Amazing answer. So you guys, if you're out there and you're interested in this book, you can find it on it's on Amazon, Kindle.
Yes, it's
Yes.
on Amazon. Yeah, audiobook, paperback, ebook, and it's won 5 awards already, which I'm
Oh
super
my gosh,
excited about.
congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
So you guys, if you're out there and you're looking for a present for somebody, I think this is the perfect gift. The Road Unpaved by Risa August. Go out there and buy that for your friends or family member that's down and out, and so they don't feel so alone. Because I think that's the best gift That's the reason I do this podcast, is so no one feels like they're alone. We all have to be able to feel that energy or feel that thing that we want to propel for, that we got that dream on our bucket list and nothing can stand in our way. And you are a true example of that, Risa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bizzy. I'm so grateful to you and for creating this platform and to allowing me to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. Thank you so much. I wish you a blessed Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. I hope you have a wonderful season. It sounds like everything you're doing sounds like a lot of fun. And it's probably snowy and white there, where I live in Florida, not so much. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you. Take care, everybody. And until next time, Conversations with Bizzy. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Thanks, Risa.
You bet.
Thanks for listening to Conversations with Bizzy. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, if you could subscribe, that would mean the world to me. And follow me on all social media. And you can also get my newsletter every Friday morning into your inbox. Just go to elizabethchance.com and subscribe. Take care.